Mm. Good evening, comrades. This is online communist forum organised by Communist Party of Great Britain, um, and Jack Conrad is going to talk on behalf of the PCC on Gaza and Trump's 20-point programme and other things. Carry on, Jack.
Yeah, thanks very much, Stan. Yeah, um, I presume other comrades have looked at the Trump program. I'm told that it's the same as it always has been, broadly speaking. What is new isn't insignificant, and that is in terms of the original Trump plan that he sort of pushed, it had payment for Palestinians to actually leave Gaza to various unnamed countries. As I speak, as far as I understand at least, negotiations are happening, I think, in Egypt. I could be wrong there, but negotiations are happening. I haven't seen any results. Um, Basically, what we seem to have in terms of reporting is that Hamas agrees to it in part or in most part. Israel says it agrees and will implement the first part. What is the plan? Very, very, very briefly, it involves the release of Hamas and others, and that's important, war captives, and that, of course, includes the dead as well as the living. Israel releasing prisoners on its side, a ceasefire. Hamas gives up its arms. Israel withdraws its troops, that's my understanding. And then we have some sort of, and I've been pulled up on this, I'm going to use the right word this time, some sort of colonial administration. Not, Israel, how should you put it, exercising control from the outside of the world's largest open air prison, but direct colonial control by some sort of committee. And I've been told various names. The most acceptable one, from what I've been told, and again, all of this no doubt will change, or at least some of it will change, is some liberal Dutch politician who's spoken, for example, about genocide. The others are pretty awful. And that includes Trump, I think, as the chair, but also our great friend and former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, of all people. Now, of course, the nature of negotiations is that things probably will change. But my own guess, and that's all it is, who can talk with certainty, under these circumstances. My own guess, for what it's worth, is that Hamas is being set up. It's being set up to fail. Now, I could be wrong here. It's certainly got a huge amount of pressure on it from Egypt, from Turkey, from its backers in the Gulf states. Either way, if you look at the how should I put it, how this thing has been laid out, to me, it's sort of reminiscent of the Riviera plan. There you are, you have it launched in the White House. There's Trump, who's standing next to him with a Cheshire cat smile, Netanyahu, and that's what we saw this time. The idea, I mean, I heard it from some comrades that the United States was taking over Gaza. in order to develop property for Trump. No, no, no. No, what's going on, as far as I see it, is the grand plan for a greater Israel. And it's how you get to a greater Israel, I think, that is perhaps at issue between Israel and the United States. And of course, Israel has to play along to a very large degree with the United States. Of course, it's got its own interests, it's got its own politics. It's quite conceivable, for example, I mean, again, who knows what will happen, that if there is an agreement to stop armed actions, you could have a rearrangement of the Netanyahu government. The right parties conceivably leave, other parties could replace them. I don't know, but it does strike me, at least, that Netanyahu wouldn't be beaming from ear to ear if he'd just been told, I'm scotching your plans for a greater Israel. We're going for some sort of two-state solution. That is not on the cards. So my take is that either Hamas agrees, and then Israel finds its moment, further on down the line, or Hamas doesn't agree, and then, as Netanyahu said himself, then we go ahead and we sort the business out once and for all using our methods. So we don't know what the result of these negotiations will be, but it does strike me that this isn't overturning the apple cart as far as Netanyahu is concerned. Again, just to underline something, I mean, how many times have I heard it? I don't know about other comrades, but I've heard it too many times. Israel hasn't won the war. Israel has been defeated. Israel cannot afford to carry on this war. Israel is devoting, too many, people ought to be paying taxes to the army in order to carry out this war in Gaza. I don't buy any of that. I mean, to all intents and purposes, Hamas has been defeated. It's not a total defeat, but when you're talking about genocide and you combine that with somehow that Hamas, has scored a victory or Israel has lost, it's not to see the wood for the trees. The reality is that Israel is overwhelmingly strong. It's backed by the United States. And okay, I'm not buying into the idea that you can have a greater Israel on some sort of permanent basis. It does strike me, if you want to draw an analogy, all analogies break down. But if I wanted to draw an analogy from history, it would be something like the Crusader kingdoms in Palestine, the kingdom of Jerusalem and all the rest of it, that were eventually overwhelmed by the forces of the surrounding Muslim countries, Saladin, and your history. Okay, that's just my take. We wait and see, what the news is going to be. But my take on it, that it is bleak. My take on it is that you might get a directly colonial regime. What's to guarantee that in the name of humanity, that direct colonial regime doesn't allow Israel, or doesn't allow the United States, or doesn't allow the EU or our Arab countries to accept people and induce people to leave? Israel hasn't, for example, said that it's going to lift the siege. Well, that tells you what the arrangement is. This is a prison camp, but now directly administered, not by people of the choosing of the Gazan population, but by imposition from with outside, with a gun pointing at their collective head. Okay, meanwhile, I don't buy it as a conspiracy. I should add, there is that story going around. We have the Yom Kippur Manchester bombing. The individual concerned, apparently the Home Secretary, has never heard of anyone called jihad before. Either way, I suppose, for the sake of the conspiracy theorists, I suppose I could throw in, he seems to be someone who was on bail on rape charges. Now, again, you add 1 and 1 together and you make 5. I don't really buy that. I could be wrong again. I think it's just an accident rather than design. Either way, I have to express my own feeling here. This guy launches himself at this synagogue. He kills 1 person, and then the police kill 2. He kill him, and then kill someone inside, and then bang! This storm of reaction, this flood tide, this tsunami of I don't know what you'd call it, nonsense, lies. I was reading, what's the guy's name? Lord Ian Austin in The Sun. I'm used to reading The Sun. The Sun usually lies. But this article, which ended with a link where you could make donations to the CAA, the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, was full of stuff about the demonstrations that I've been on, bar 1, being hate marches, that are somehow responsible for this killing in Manchester, that somehow we're responsible for Jew hatred, that somehow we're responsible for daubing shit on synagogues. This is meant to be the responsibility of these marches. Now, anyone, and of course, they're not wanting to have the truth. This is a lie, and a big lie. But the fact of the matter is, what is noticeable if you go to these demonstrations, and precisely this is to counter the big lie, is how many Jews organize on those demonstrations specifically as Jews. So you have the Jewish bloc, you have our friend Mark, sons and daughters of Holocaust survivors. You have people carrying homemade placards. As a Jew, I do not approve of Israel, etc., etc., etc. And the idea that anyone who's Jewish, who feels threatened by those marches, I just don't know. I literally do not believe it. The fact of the matter is, I've seen too many Zionists, supporters of this war by Israel, marching, right, in these demonstrations as a provocation. And they're not attacked by the demonstrators. What happens is the police close in on them and, I presume, arrest them on the basis of you're likely to cause a breach of the peace. So no, we go past every time a really sick counter demonstration, people celebrating what's going on in Gaza. Are these people in danger? Of course they're not. And the idea that these marches would attack or intimidate people attending a synagogue is just not true. It's a lie. Nonetheless, we have this sort of media, outage of lies about these demonstrations. And we have Sabana Mahmood, our new Home Secretary, talking about, and we haven't seen the details, so we wait and see, but we have them proposing that repeated marches that intimidate or are likely to cause fear amongst a certain sections of the population will face restrictions. I think we all know what's meant by that, because what we've seen over the last 2 years, nearly to the day, is repeated and absolutely mass mobilizations. Very representative marches of the population of London, and beyond. I've already mentioned Jews, lots of Muslims, lots of left-wingers, lots of peaceniks, lots and lots of people, ordinary Londoners. And so what we presumably face are bans. They can't restrict us anymore when it comes to the route. We've already been barred from rallying at the BBC because apparently we intimidate a synagogue. I didn't even know there was a synagogue there. I'm sure there's a synagogue everywhere, near enough where we march. At the moment, I think we're marching at, 3 routes? We always end up, at Whitehall. This time we're starting off again at the Embankment. We're going to go over 2 bridges and we'll end up back in Whitehall again. We're already under restriction of when the rally must finish, when the demonstration must be dispersed. So clearly we're dealing with more repression. And of course, this is not only more repression when it comes to marches. I would very much expect myself, here's a prediction, and I'm much more certain of this one, that after the banning of Palestine Action, well, what about Defend Our Juries? Are they going to be banned next? After all, they're the ones that are now organizing these terribly intimidating demonstrations, mainly by, for good reasons, mainly by elder people. Why elder people? Because you go and talk to the comrades and they basically say, they're quite open about it. Well, if I get arrested, I haven't got a job, I've got my pension, they can't sack me. What are they going to do to me? So we've had hundreds after hundreds after hundreds of people. You've seen the pictures, people sitting down there writing their message, I support Palestine Action. And the idea that these people represent a danger, that the last time I was down at Parliament Square, there they are, 1,000 people with these messages. I'm standing next to a policeman and I'm saying, well, look at Graham Bash. Look at this person. Look at that person. They're holding. Why don't you arrest them as a danger? They're clearly supporting a terrorist organization. No, the order hadn't come through to arrest people. Clearly, the police were relying on people wanting to go home, getting bored, having to go to the toilet, getting hungry. Either way, then the order comes and they arrest people. As the organizers, as Defend Our Juries said, it's up to the police whether you arrest someone. All this stuff about protecting synagogues, okay, go and protect synagogues. Don't arrest all of these old people for standing up, or for that matter, sitting down with a placard saying, I support Palestine Action. You don't need to arrest them. Clearly, as I've illustrated, for hour after hour, the police basically turned a blind eye. So why not turn a blind eye? And indeed, I deliberately went out of my way last time to get into conversations with the police. I believe in doing that. And I said, well, do these people look dangerous to you? Do they look like terrorists? What do you think about your job? What do you think about it? Arresting all these people. And basically what you got from the police, especially if no one was watching, and what we're talking about is people, sergeants and those above. Look, this is a stupid law. I don't like doing it, but yeah, I'm just carrying out orders. And of course, I did jump in there and quote Nuremberg, and I know they're not carrying out anything like that, but you get the point, and they get the point as well. Majority of the police feel extraordinarily uncomfortable in carrying out this law. This isn't about protecting the public. It's not about protecting Jews. So many of these people were openly proclaiming themselves to be Jewish. Israel does not act on my name. That's what they were determined to demonstrate. That's why they're displaying their Jewish origins, their Jewish ancestry, or whatever you have. But yeah, we have not only the Sun, not only the Home Secretary, not only the Prime Minister, the Board of British Deputies, Chief Rabbi, all talking about threatening Jews, hate marches, and how they ought to be banned. And so, yeah, my prediction, I think, on much safer ground than when I'm talking about Hamas, is we'll see restriction after restriction after restriction. And we said that at the beginning, in terms of the witch hunt in the Labour Party. This will spread. It will not only affect the Labour Party, it will go into academia, it will get people sacked. And now what we're seeing is mass arrests. Why can't left organizations follow in this logic? Well, that is the logic that we're following. And just lastly, to illustrate the point, this article by one Lord Ian Austin ended not only with a link where you could donate money to the CIA, but he quoted in his last paragraph, the CIA, the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, the fact, according to them, that 1 in 5 members of the British public are anti-Semitic, because they answered when there was a survey, do you think Israel treats the Palestinians like the Nazis treated the Jews? Well, if I was asked that question, I would say, well, I'm not going to give you a straight answer to that one. But if you ask me the question, does Israel treat the Jews like the Nazis? Does Israel treat the Palestinians like the Nazis treated the Jews in the 1930s? I would say yes, unequivocally. If you said, do they treat them like the Jews in the 1940s? I would say, well, we're on the cusp of it. Does that make me anti-Semitic? I don't think so. And this is the danger that I think we have if we insist on dictionary definitions. The nature of a dictionary, comrades say, let's rely on the Webster or the Cambridge dictionary when it comes to anti-Semitism. What we're seeing at the moment is in official society is a shift in the meaning of anti-Semitism. The official meaning now means, do you oppose Zionism? Do you oppose the state of Israel in its war on the Palestinians? And my answer to that must be, yes, I do. Does that make me an anti-Semite? Well, you might want to call me an anti-Semite. I refuse that label. Okay. Moving now onwards, I thought the Tory party conference was worth a mention. It's from October the 5th, so that's today, to the 8th. Of course, it isn't really a conference. It's a rally where the leader and the members of the shadow cabinet parade in front of TVs, parade in front of a picked docile, well, not necessarily docile, but, an audience that's there to clap. Not to question. There'll be fringe meetings, there'll be all sorts of get-togethers by potential rivals, people wanting to go up, and all the rest of it. But interestingly, before the conference, what we had is Kemi Badenoch's attempt to counter reform with the promise of a British version of ICE. And so what she says is we'll have a removal force, and that will get rid of 150,000 illegal migrants a year. Yes, it will cost £1.6 billion, but this will save money. This will save money on hotels. This is, of course, a lie. The British government, the Labour government, says it will get rid of housing migrants in hotels by the end of this parliament. It doesn't matter. This isn't, about saving money. This is performative, and it's about performative cruelty. It's about Kemi Badenoch wanting to be more cruel than the Labour government, and potentially a rival in cruelty to Reform and Nigel Farage. I have to ask myself, where the hell they put 150,000 people. Now, I've been told that there has been recently, with the agreement of the Iranian government, a flight from America to somewhere in the Gulf and then directly over Tehran and the landing of illegal Iranian migrants in America back in Iran. Well, maybe the British government under Kemi, maybe under Keir Starmer, will come to such an agreement. But what about people who come from other trouble spots like Syria, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Somaliland, Libya, Afghanistan? The list can carry on and on and on. Where do they put these people? They can't put them back in France. France isn't going to say, well, because they came over in a small boat from France, we'll accept these people. 150,000? I don't know. But what we're told by the Tories is they will withdraw from treaties. They will withdraw from European treaties. Perhaps they will withdraw from world treaties in order to carry out this. But I still have the question in my head: what are they going to do with 100,000 people, 150,000 people who are arrested every year? Do they not put them in prisons? Do they not put them in camps? You know, if you're arresting people as opposed to, you know, processing people, this is surely more expensive than hotels. I don't know what it costs nowadays to put someone in prison, but we all know, you know, apocryphally, that it's more expensive to send someone to prison than it is someone to Eton. I don't think that even, you know, a 4-star or 5-star hotel are quite that expensive. Either way, my point is there. The idea that this is going to save money is nonsense. This is about politics, and that's quite straightforward. Interestingly, I suppose not surprisingly, the press, because it's got to sell papers, but I suspect there's more truth to it than there was around the Keir Starmer is toast stories that we had with the Liverpool conference. I mean, especially with the Andy Burnham. I mean, Andy Burnham, as I pointed out, isn't even an MP. Is Keir Starmer going to agree that he should stand in a by-election in order to stand, you know, in a leadership contest? I don't think so. Yes. If Keir Starmer does badly at the next general election, and if Andy Burnham, you know, gets a seat and wins it at the next general election, then I could conceive of an Andy Burnham challenge, and maybe Keir Starmer is defeated. I don't know. But Kemi Badenoch, on the other hand, now you might say that the Tories are too much of, you know, in too much of a habit of replacing one leader with another leader. I mean, how many have they had over the, you know, the recent years? I mean, I genuinely, you would have to think I've, you know, basically lost count. But yes, inevitably we have not only Robert Jenrick, but someone I'd never heard of. That shows you how little I take, you know, notice I take of Tory party politics. We have someone called Katie Lamb now being touted as a potential replacement for Kemi Badenoch. She's 34, state school. I presume that's a plus nowadays, but showing how bright she is. Straight to Cambridge, straight to Goldman Sachs, straight to Downing Street. Bad point though, she was in under Boris Johnson, who's a big no-no, a big softie nowadays. Either way, one of her briefs now is about migration, and basically she's been talking about how much she hates migrants. So that is definitely a one-up for Katie. And so what you've got between the mainstream parties is basically a competition. Who can up the ante against migrants? My own take on it is that you would find it hard to outdo Nigel Farage. You know, how many treaties do you have to withdraw from? How many laws do you need to change? How much absolute, you know, bestial cruelty do you have to indulge in order to out Farage? The only example which isn't irrelevant to note here is the formation of an organization called Advance. I must admit I hadn't heard of it, but it's significant because it includes one of the former former Reform UK MPs, I think, or maybe it's an MEP. No, it must be an MP. But also, it's backed by one Elon Musk plus Tommy Robinson. And I think that gives you an idea. So Musk seems to be throwing his money not behind Farage at the moment, but behind Advance. And you get this, as I say, this competition on the extreme right that goes all the way in to the Labour Party, who can be beastly to migrants. And the reality is that when it comes to day-to-day life, what, of course, we're talking about isn't just illegal migrants. We're talking about migrants in general, and anyone who looks like they might be a migrant. And I just wanted to comment on Socialist Worker in this context. They've got a double page, and it's good on one level, and it's basically saying, look what migrants do for Britain. And it's saying, look at the health service, look at social care, look at all the jobs that migrants do. Well, my fear with that is, suppose, and I would make the argument myself, suppose you could show that illegal migrants, or maybe just migrants, actually undermine pay. After all, why are bosses in favor of importing cheap labor? What happens if you could show that migrants are actually responsible for lowering, especially the pay of the least work, the worst paid? What do you then do? Turn around and say, well, we're against migration? No, this isn't the right approach. It's a nationalist approach. It's a nationalist approach you should expect from the CPB, who believe in a British road to socialism. So I appreciate the motivation behind the editor, and he's basically trying to equip the guys on the streets that are selling Socialist Worker, with the arguments of, well, we've got to get rid of migrants. And they're meant to turn around and say, what about the NHS? What about social care? What about this? What about, and all the rest of it? Well, it's a dangerous argument, and that's what I would say. No, our argument should be internationalist. Our argument should be about organizing migrant workers and British workers in trade unions. It should be about setting minimal levels of pay, enforcing higher pay through collective action. That's our approach, not to show what's good value for Britain PLC. Okay. Just to put a footnote on my comments on the Tory party, my guess, again, for what it's worth nothing. And that is that the Tory party will survive. It is conceivable that Nigel Farage could be the next prime minister. That is conceivable. But just on the balance, I would argue that the Labour Party will survive, the Tory party will survive. What we need to note, though, is the Labour Party, the Tory party, Reform itself are all moving to the right. That is the point, not who will replace who. Okay, having talked about their parties, I just wanted to turn to your party, i.e. the Corbyn, Sultana, Carrie Murphy party. I just wanted to make a very quick comment on it. And that is 3 cheers, not only for Socialist Worker. This week, Socialist Worker has got the announcement that we carried in this week's Weekly Worker from their internal bulletin. Socialist Worker Party members are being urged to join, and they're being urged to fight the politics out inside your party. That's great. So a big contrast this time round, comrades, from your attitude to the Labour Party when Corbyn was a leader. Then they mocked the idea of being in committee rooms and said all politics is about strikes and the streets. This time round, they seem to be saying it's great to be in committee rooms. It's great to have meetings of your party. Well, that's a step forward. And I also, again, give three cheers to the comrades in the Socialist Party in England and Wales, who are also taking a similar view. Comrades openly, comrades should go in to your party, argue out the politics. They've got different politics to us. So SWP wants some sort of umbrella organization. SPEW wants some sort of federal party, a Labour Party Mark II. Yeah, sure, let's have the argument. SWP will still have the emphasis on strikes and streets. Socialist Party, a little bit more, elections aren't irrelevant, comrades. They are important too. They can become a form of the class struggle. That's absolutely right. But it's good that the comrades openly say they're going in. My fear is, though, that if we look at the structure that might be agreed, we don't know, but looks like it might be agreed, that the sort of structure we fear could be something like Podemos in Spain. I don't know enough about Mélenchon's party in France. I ought to look it up and see what sort of democracy they have or don't have. Either way, in Spain, what you had with Podemos is lots of Zoomocracy, or the equivalent of it, some sort of OMOF vote on the sort of click type level. So no conferences, no sovereign conference, things decided by an atomized membership, branches sidelined, and that is the danger with your party. Now, how that translates into election campaigns, I don't know, because you cannot vote in a general election just using clicks and just using Zoom. You've got to go out and talk to people. If you want to build an organization, you've got to go out and talk to people. And just living in the world of social media, I don't think that is a substitute from actually talking real time to real people, working side to side with real people, real time. Anyway, I had a look, and I'm not sure. Maybe comrades could tell me if I'm right. I was told, and that's what I put in my article this week in the Weekly Worker, that what we're going to have in Liverpool over, I think it's the 28th to 29th, I was told we're going to have 4 sessions with 4 sets of different visitors, right? Now, I've looked up the size of the ACC Centre in Liverpool, and it depends which venue within the complex they are choosing. The maximum number that they can hold up there is the MS Bank Arena, right? That can hold 11,000. Now, given that they're actually talking about 13,000 people, well, therefore, you're talking about at least 2 sessions. Perhaps, though, they've booked the BT Convention Centre. That's 1,350. Even that doesn't work. I don't know what they're planning, but the idea that if you divide people up on the basis of being randomly selected and you take them there either for a day and then they go back home, or you bring them up and they're there for half a day and they can make a reasoned, informed decision is risible, and the organizers know it. And that's why we've got the sort of arrangement that we have. In the name of democracy, in the name of involvement, we actually have something that's radically different. So, yeah, and this is why I think, you've got some sort of crisis going to happen in Y Party, not the crisis that Comrade Steve Freeman talks about in this paper, not the crisis actually that the comrades in the SWP and SPEW talk about, the split at the top between Empress Sultana and King Corbyn. But no, the rank and file organized in branches against a national committee that they didn't elect, that isn't accountable to them. and yet they're expected to carry out orders, carry out the election campaign. That's the split that I think is pending in Y Party. And that's a split that we ought to encourage. We want to encourage those below, organized in branches, to organize together on a regional basis. If you're organized in a London borough, organize across London. If you're organized in Manchester or Liverpool or in South Yorkshire, let's organize nationally. Let's have our own conference. Either way, while we want to, go up to Liverpool and interact with the comrades chosen at random, by lottery. The idea of us having any influence on them is risible. When we go to Labour Party conference, and we don't bother it at the moment, of course, you were dealing with people elected from branches who are going to report back to the branches. You were talking about people elected because, hey, that comrade's an interesting one, or that comrade agrees with Corbyn, or that comrade doesn't agree with Corbyn. That comrade has got experience, or that comrade can get experience. Let's see what they learn by going to Liverpool or down to Brighton. This time we won't even know who they are. Maybe they'll pop up in a branch and say, oh, I went to conference and this is how I voted. Well, we know how most of them will vote, but, no accountability, no explanation. They weren't selected by the branches. They were chosen at random. Why did they come to the decision? Oh, because Jeremy said it would be a good idea and I voted with. I mean, that's going to be the average level that we're talking about. So yes, we'll go up to Liverpool, we'll try to interact with people, but we can't tell them, don't vote for this. Well, we could tell them, don't vote for this, don't vote for that, vote, because what we've got back at home is this mass, we don't know how many yet, who will be voting with these things, with their mouse. And that will swamp anything in terms of the Liverpool Convention Centre. Okay, lastly, I just wanted to mention, well, not penultimately, I just wanted to mention the CPB. They're playing good boys and girls. They're not going to go into Y Party. My own view is this is to show how safe they are to the trade union and labour bureaucracy, but also because Robert Griffiths fears for the cohesion of his organisation. I think that Liam Nelson and Hannah Sell have more confidence in their membership. Either way, I think it's a wrong decision by the CPB, but very, very much true to form. Anyway, I just thought, lastly, and I will just add a hook at the end of that one, I just touch upon the Greens, because the Greens also have had their conference, and what have we got? Headlines about drugs. 3 cheers for the Greens, legalize all drugs, cocaine or whatever it is. We agree. Doesn't mean we're advocating people take cocaine or heroin. But what we're saying is it's much safer for people, right, to take drugs that are legal, take drugs that are, tested. When I drink a pint of beer, as is my one, I want to know how strong it is. I want to know I'm going to have a weak one to begin with, or I only have 3, or I only have 5, or I only have whatever it. I'm not going to go on the whiskey. I want to know how strong it is. I want to know, is it dangerous? And also we want medical treatment, right, for people who are hooked on these drugs. And we want to encourage people to go to less harmful drugs. And we also want to get rid of the criminal class here. Huge industry, that spans the planet, worth billions and billions and billions in terms of the drug trade. So we agree with the Greens on that one. The Greens also are saying refugees are welcome here. I don't know whether that's SWP slogan, whether that was originated by them. Okay, yes, refugees are welcome here. But what about migrants? What about illegal migrants? Aren't they welcome here? And why not? After all, if we look at where people flee from, right, it's not just about people who are officially refugees. It's also people who want a better life. Is that illegitimate? I would say it's not. I would say free movement is something to defend, but that goes with us hand in hand with organizing people, hand in hand with a political battle to change the world. Okay, we also know that I don't know, someone maybe can inform me. I don't know whether the Green Party changed its policy on NATO because under Caroline Lucas, I think that was the change. You had the Green Party adopting the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. You had the Green Party dropping its previous opposition to NATO, and especially in the light of Ukraine basically becoming a pro-NATO organization. So Zach Polanski himself is anti-NATO, but note what he wants to put in place. He wants a European defense system. What's that a defense of? Capitalism, European capitalism. And what he says is that the United States is no longer trustworthy. That's why you've got to dump NATO. So he's in favor of defending European capitalism. That's what his defense policy is. And I'll just add this one. Just going to come to an end. What they haven't reverted to is the policy that the Green Party had under Natalie Bennett, which was to adopt the militia system. Now, that isn't a revolutionary demand. It's a democratic demand. It goes way back in terms of, European American history. You could argue it goes back to ancient Rome, but more realistically, it goes back to the Renaissance and Machiavelli, people like that, the Italian city-states, and their experience of the uselessness or the inefficiency of mercenary armies. Either way, it became a standard demand of Marxist parties. And what's terrible at the moment is precisely the left having abandoned that and viewing that as a joke. And I wanted to illustrate the joke by looking at the draft resolution of the Executive Committee of the already mentioned Communist Party of Britain. It's 12,000 words. 12,000 words that the comrades who are going to the CPB conference up in Sheffield are expected to read and amend. You have to plow through something, the length of a small novel. It's just absolutely amazing. And of course, that's designed precisely to bore people to death. It's designed to, flood the zone. Right? This isn't an attempt to clarify. It's an attempt to obscure political differences. It's why when I was a member of the official communist movement, I don't know if you remember, Stan, when you went to a Congress, how many fraternal speakers you had, one after the bloody other. And then they would say, how many people want to speak? See if hands go up. And they say, 60 people want to speak. We've got an hour. That's one a minute. And they'll atomize the opposition into minute slots with the chair going buzz, buzz, buzz. You've had your 60 seconds. Well, what can you say in 60 seconds? Anyway, I looked at the defense policy of the CPB. And what do we have? We had demilitarized defense strategy. We had a demand to cut arms spending. What the hell is that all about? So what sort of defense policy are we in favor of? So are we in favor of half a defense policy? Are we in favor of cutting the budget by half and leaving the professional army in half, or having half an air force, or having half an aircraft carrier? I'm somewhat mystified. No, what our slogan is under capitalism is a people's militia, right? but also when it comes to their wars, when it comes to their army, without that program, what we say is not a penny, not a person. That's our policy. We do not support any so-called defense policy, not what's reasonable, not half an aircraft carrier, no aircraft carriers until those aircraft carriers are our aircraft carriers. So, yeah, not a cut in arms spending, comrades. We shouldn't vote for any arms spending when it comes to the Ukraine war, when it comes to NATO, when it comes precisely to the British Army, that when the police force fail, they all put on the streets against us. We're not in favour of their army. We're in favour of an army of the population that can be won by the population, won by the left and used by the left in the sort of same way that Friedrich Engels recommended with his pamphlet, Can Europe Disarm? And what he was talking about there is a rebellion in the ranks of the popular militia to support an elected government of the working class party against the expected slave owners rebellion. That is our defense policy. So, of course, we need an armed defense policy. We need our arms. We don't want to be arming the capitalist class and their agents. That's a